Okay, so I got a story to tell you guys. Gosh, where do I even start with this? You probably looking at me right now, I'm all solemn, I got the fucking Band-Aid. I'm like, you're probably like, okay, what the hell happened to you? Okay. Okay, but good place for me to start was, alright. I was at work last night. I was at Dollar Tree. I actually just got back from there. I worked today as well. But last night I was working, and it was probably around, I closed last night, so it was probably around like 8 o'clock. And around 8 o'clock, this guy comes in. And this guy he's bald, he's like in his, mid to late 40s. It doesn't really matter because the story's not about him. But basically, this guy, he comes in there quite often. And I know the reason why, we all know the reason why he goes in there is because he's basically got the hots for one of my bosses. So he's like, he goes in and he tries to hit on her and he just like kind of stays around. Like I remember one day he came in there and he just shopped around for like 10 minutes or whatever, paid for his stuff, left, and he had to come back in again, and he's like, oh man, I forgot this thing. And my boss, of course, does not find him attractive at all. So anyway, he comes in last night and he's shopping around. And he checks out and he leaves, and then he starts pulling that shit again, or he comes back in, and my boss is just like, after he's going around the other side of the store, my boss is just like, okay, you know what, he's probably going to be in here for a while, so I'm going to go on my lunch now. I'm going to go on my lunch, and can you take care of everything, because lunches last half an hour. I'm like, okay, yeah, it's fine. It's relatively late at night, we close pretty soon, there's not going to be any major trouble, right? So yeah, so she takes her lunch and she goes in the back, and the guy comes up and he's like, where'd she run off to? And I'm like, oh, she went on her lunch. And he's like, oh, okay, whatever. So whatever, he checks out. He's not a bad guy. He's not like, he doesn't really press for anything. He's just he thinks that he has a shot with her, and he really doesn't. But whatever, that's not the story. That's just the setup for the story. So he leaves, right? And there's like nobody in the store for like 10-15 minutes. I pretty much just go around and I stock the shelves and just make sure I'm sweeping the floor. I'm just doing whatever. So about say 20 after 8, around there, maybe closer to like 8:15ish, this girl walks in. And she is hot. Like, okay, I know, like, see, it's like, okay, I work in a store, all right? I work in a store filled with mostly the only people that come into our store for the most part, especially this late at night, are usually either really old people that just, they lose track of time unless it was like, glued to like their sense of time is shot. So they'll come in and they'll be like, when do you guys close? I'm like, we close in like 20 minutes. I'm like, oh, I thought you closed later. So their sense of time is shot. So that kind of person comes in, or it's the family setting where it's like the mother and the father, both white trash, and like a plethora of children. It's either one of those two factors. The old person and family ratio to hot, attractive girls that are in my age bracket is extremely skewed. So I was surprised that someone were to that she were to come in, because she was wearing like a tank top, and she had her hair was blonde, but it had like a pink streak down it, and it was actually she was really hot. So anyway, not to draw on this for too long. But anyway, you're probably thinking, what the hell? I start off the story by talking about how I think as a girl is attractive, and I have this right here. I'm like, where is this going? So, it's probably not going the way you think. Anyway, so, I think she's attractive, but I'm not going to, follow around the store or everything. I mean, I kind of want to, but at the same time, it's just like, I can't do that. I was like, maybe I can drum up a conversation with her, because the sucky thing about being a cashier is that people don't really give a shit about what you have to say for the most part, unless you're going back to the old lady that apparently is like, how's the weather out today? Oh, it's pretty hot out there, huh? Oh, it's pretty hot, it's like 85, like that. But for the most part, no one cares about what I say. Go to your local gas station or supermarket and really think about it. When the cashier starts up a conversation, if he does, You don't care about what he has to say. If you talk to the cashier about something just arbitrary, it's going to be like the weather, like, oh man, it's pretty hot out today, or ooh, we're supposed to get a pretty bad thunderstorm. You know, it's nothing concrete. It's the freaking cashier. So that's the sucky thing. Whenever I see an attractive girl that walks in that is in my age bracket, and I want to talk to her, I can't talk to her about anything. I can't say like, hey, maybe I can get your number, babe, you know, because they're not going to do that. So she shops around the store for a little bit. I mostly just stay up front because I figure, you know, I'll just wait for her because, you know, I got nothing else to do. Like, there's nothing, you know, I've done pretty much everything else in the store. I might as well just, you know, wait up here and just screw around with the candy shelf until she comes up, and then I'll just wait on her. So she comes up, and she was checking out, and she noticed my, oh, I'm not wearing it. Hold on. Hold up. Yeah, she noticed my katana sword. I carry that with me on my I carry that with me in the store. She noticed my bleach wristband. Because I wear this sometimes. I don't wear it every day, but this just happens to be a day where I will wear my bleach wristband I got. So I'm wearing my bleach wristband, so I'm like checking her out, and she notices that, and she's like, oh, that's from Bleach. And I'm looking at her, and I'm like, oh, yeah, you like it? Yeah, I got this off of it. I'm like, oh, damn, okay. So you're attractive and you know what Bleach is. That's good. But here's the thing I was really ecstatic about. See, this is sort of a test because it's not enough to know exactly what Bleach, it's not enough just to know about anime. It's not like, you know, you have to know a little bit more knowledge to actually know what this symbol means. Because in the context of the series, this symbol does not show up until much later in the series. It's not like the main image for the series. It's Ichigo's combat pass, okay? He doesn't get that until much later in the series, so it's not like it's not like she's just a casual viewer. I mean, she at least has to know about the Soul Society arc and everything. So I'm thinking, okay, that's pretty cool. Like she knew instantly what it was. So I'm like, okay, cool. I'm like, oh, you like Bleach, huh? And she's like, oh man, I love Bleach. And you know, I'm like, oh, okay, so do you read the manga, or do you read the... I'm like ecstatic here. I'm like, I don't know. I want to contain my excitement, though. So I'm like, do you read the manga, or do you watch the anime, or what's up? And she's like, well, the anime, I did used to watch the anime in Japanese on the internet, but that ended. And I'm like, holy shit, you actually know about that. I almost had that exact reaction, too. I'm looking at her, I'm like, I know, right? That sucks. And she's like, oh, you watched it in Japanese, too? I was like, well, I mean, I watched the dub when it comes out, and, you know, that's the only thing. She said she doesn't watch the dub, but I'm like, I mean, I watched the dub when it comes out, but, yeah, I watched the Japanese up for a while, but I'm just reading the manga right now. And she's like, oh, yeah, the manga, yeah, that's up to when like, she knew all about the freaking Quincy's and everything. I'm like, oh, my God, that's freaking epic. I'm like, I'm trying to contain my excitement here, because I don't know where you guys live. I don't know if you guys live in a city, or if you can just, like, if this is more common. But let me tell you something right now. Living in the area where I live in, there must be a total of probably 5 people I can name off the top of my head that know what Bleach is, and probably only 2 that I can name off the top of my head that read the manga of Bleach and just, you know, read it, like, actually know what manga means. Because usually when I have a conversation, it's like, do you know what anime is? Oh yeah, I watch it from time to time. Do you know what manga is? No, I don't. See, that's usually how the conversation goes, and that's with a very select few of people. But the fact that she not only watches the Japanese anime, knows what the manga is, even knows what manga is to begin with, and not only that, but she's up to the same part in the story that I am, that's fucking amazing. That's like impossible. I'm like, did I hit the freaking lottery here or something? So I start talking to her about it. I just start, like, having a conversation. I'm like, oh, do you read the manga on the internet? And she's like, yeah, I do. We're up to, like, it's like, we're up to the backstory with this shit. And I'm like, yeah, so we just have a conversation about that. And, you know, I did mention that I do my Bleach thing, because I have, I keep my, if you don't know, I have these business card things. Yeah, I keep these in my wallet. And, you know, I was going to mention it to her, but I figured, you know, screw it. I'm just going to have a conversation with her for a couple minutes here. And I did. I had a conversation for like a good 5 minutes just talking about Bleach. And you know, the main, like, in the Ishin backstory, we talked about that. I talked about, you know, the whole thing with Aizen still being a part of the story. And, you know, like, it's like, oh man, I freaking, you know, they have to move on beyond that. Just like, it's incredible. And so I didn't tell her that, and, like, I actually did stuff off the internet until much later, but I told her, I'm like, oh man, I talk about this on a weekly basis. So, you know, I gave her a card, and we're talking about that. And so eventually I thought, okay, maybe we'll get lucky here. Maybe we'll get lucky. So it's like, oh, do you watch other anime beside Bleach? So, okay, she doesn't watch One Piece, or she doesn't read One Piece, but aside from that, She reads Naruto, she reads freaking Fairy Tail, she reads Vampire Knight, and she watches Vampire Knight. I'm not a huge... I never really got into Vampire Knight, but I'm like, Vampire Knight, whatever, I know what that's about. Fruits Basket, which is a, it's a very girly type anime, but we talked about Fruits Basket for a little bit because at least I know how the story is. It's not my favorite, shoujo type manga, but, she would be more into that. I think I did mention Good Ending very briefly. I'm like, oh yeah, I read some shoujo manga, like I'm into, like, I read IS and Good Ending, and she didn't really know what that was, but I recommend a Good Ending, because that's really good in case you haven't read it. So, but it's just astounding, like truly just incredible that I was even able to have this conversation. Like, this is probably the most in-depth anime conversation I've had with freaking anybody, like, anywhere. So, I'm talking to her about that for a little bit. And eventually I asked her, like, because she just bought like a soda or something. I asked her, I said, like, I haven't really seen you around here. I'm kind of shocked because, you know so this much about anime. I've never seen you in here. Do you come in here often or whatever? And she told me no, she actually just got a job at there's a hair salon right next door. There's a hair salon, it's called Holiday Hair, and apparently she just got a job there, and she just got off work, and she told me, he's like, yeah, I just got off work, I just came in here to get a drink and kill time because my boyfriend's picking me up at 9. I'm like, fuck. I'm like, really? Really? Like, every freaking time. It's funny because every time that happens, it's like I find a girl that I could be interested in, I could potentially date, and they always, without fail, always have a boyfriend. I don't get it. It's like some kind of curse that was placed on me, preconception, just some kind of like generations ago, my ancestor, Matthias Crawford, did something to piss off a sky god, and he got like cursed with this. It's like, you will be cursed. All of your descendants' love interests will already be taken. Wahaha. Anyway, so I'm like, oh, well, I played it cool, though. I'm not gonna, like, I want to say, like, son of a bitch, but, I'm like, okay, I'm playing it cool. So I'm just like, oh, okay, your boyfriend, does he like anime? And he's like, no, I tried to get him into it, but he just doesn't like that sort of thing, I tried to get him to watch anime, Doctor Who. I'm like, fuck. Sorry, knocked over my microphone. I'm like, it's like, Doctor Who, too, are you serious? And he's like, yeah, I like Doctor Who. So we have a conversation about that, and this goes on until 9. We closed at 10 o'clock, by the way, in case you're wondering about the time frame. My boss did come back from her break, but she was in the office doing stuff. So we talked for a little bit, and then around 9 o'clock, finally, this guy walks in. This guy pulls up, and I saw his car waiting out there for a little bit, but then I didn't say anything because I knew it was her boyfriend, and I'm just like, screw him, you can come in here and get her. So it's like I'm having my time with her right now, this amazing woman, and she I don't know if I mentioned this, that she had, like, her actual appearance, but she's like I said, she had the hair with the streak. That's pretty cool. She had like a black and white sort of stylized tank top on. There was like some cursive writing shit, I don't know. She had a necklace on. She was decent size if you want to go there. I'm not, like, at this point I don't even care what she looked like. The fact, well, she was attractive, that's a bonus, but just the fact I could talk about this to a female, that's freaking astounding to me. So anyway, this guy's sitting out there, he's waiting in his car for whatever, and it's like 5-10 minutes until he finally walks in, and I guess she texted him earlier, like, meet me in Dollar Tree or whatever, or meet me outside, I don't know. I don't care. So this guy walks in, and like, okay, first impression of this dude, he's a freaking, like, he walks in, he has, shorts, he's wearing, like a light blue Aeropostale American Eagle shirt, whatever the hell. He has those freaking gauges in his ears. I hate that. Big, kind of, not like super built, like, big guy, but he looked like, he looked, taller than me, stronger than me, whatever. Freaking gauges in his ear. He had like brown, black hair, kind of like grown short. Instantly though, I looked at this guy and I'm just like. At one point, this was the kind of boyfriend I was dreading she would have because, she looked very attractive, and I'm figuring this guy, I'm like, this is the typical, like, cheerleader football player relationship you'd see in high school or whatever. I didn't ask how old she was. I really don't know. She definitely looked, she was probably out of high school, most likely, because, this guy was definitely out of high school, probably. This guy looked like in his, like, early 20s. But anyway, so he walks in, and he looks at me, and it's not like a typical, like, I'm behind the counter checking her out thing. Well, I probably shouldn't have said that. I'm like leaning on the counter, and she's kind of like leaning against like the candy rack or whatever, and we were talking for quite some time, so we're just like leaning back and kind of relaxed, and he walks in and sees that, and he looks at me like, the fuck are you doing? And I'm like, I look over at him and I'm just like, oh, hello, welcome to Dollar Tree. You know, he's like, hi, and he looks over at me, and he doesn't say anything, but the stare he gives me was very defiant. The stare you can understand in that situation. So he walks over and he looks at me like this, and then he kind of like shakes it off, and he just looks at her, and she, oh, her name, my God, I forgot her name. My God, her name was Tara. I'm like, I can't believe I've been telling this story for what, 15 minutes. I forgot to tell you her freaking name. I don't know what her boyfriend's name was. You know, Mr. McDouchebag, I don't know. Anyway, so her name was Tara, and so the guy walks in, and he looks at me very quickly, and he just kind of shrugs it off, and he's just like, hey, I was waiting for you outside, and I'm like, oh, well, you know, I'm sorry, I was talking to him, you know, I just time got away from me. It was like, just like, oh, well, whatever, so, you know, whatever, we gotta go. I'm like, you know, I gotta go pick some stuff up first before we head over to the, I don't know, I forget where they were going. Anyway, so, you know, she said, oh, okay, I'm sorry. So it's like, so she looks at me and she's like, nice meeting you. And she shakes my hand, and he stares at me daggers a little bit more, and she's like, you know, it's like, oh, okay, see you, bye. And the sucky thing here was, I really, I can't tell you how much I wanted to get this chick's number, but at the same time, this guy was like, I should have just said, fuck it, you know, I don't care what this guy says, I don't care, you know, I'm just gonna ask her, and if he wants to come up and freaking clock me in the nose, we're getting there, and that's cool, right? So, the rest of the night, I was kind of, like, so they leave, of course, and, you know, she was awesome, and after that, I tell my boss all about her. I'm like, oh, she knew about anime, she knew about Doctor Who, she was great, and my boss is just, like, berating me. He's like, you should have got her number, and I'm like, I know, but her boyfriend was right there, and, you know, he's like, who cares about that? You know, that's nothing, that's trivial, and I'm like, as soon as she left, of course, I immediately felt, like, pathetic, because I didn't ask her what her number was. I didn't even get her last name. So anyway, I felt kind of depressed the rest of the night, but, you know, we eventually, you know, day ends, we lock the doors, we leave, you know, store's done, store's closed. What we have to do is, so, you know, my boss leaves, and I decide I need to go to Walmart to pick up iced tea, because I was almost out of that. So, I go into Walmart, and because Walmart's in the same plaza, we're in like this one big plaza, so Walmart's in the same plaza. So I go in to freaking Walmart, and I'm going to the back aisle to get to the freezers to get tea, and I'm just walking past all the other food aisles, and like halfway down I look down and I see them, they're there, they're there, and I'm like, oh freak, they're in the store. Okay, good, we got second redemption. So what I kind of did, and this was a little stalkerish, so you apologize, but a little stalkerish, but what I did was, I kind of didn't, they didn't see me. I kind of hung around the aisle they were in, and I just kind of waited for him to get out of view, if he was going to get out of view. Well, as I would have it, he eventually left to go to some other aisle to get something or whatever. I'm like, oh, damn, cool. All right, so I walk down the aisle, and I'm like, oh, hey, Tara. I'm like, oh. He's like, oh, you're in here. I'm like, yeah, I just got off work. I'm like, oh, cool. So, you know, immediately I just wanted to ask her before Mr. McDouchebag comes back. I didn't want to... I really shouldn't have called him a douchebag at this point, but, you know, whatever. So, you know, she looks at me, and I wanted to just ask her, I'm like, hey, what's your number? But at the same time, we ended up getting into a number conversation. You know, we continued where we left off of, like, Doctor Who or whatever, so we're talking about that. And I really should have sped this along, because I knew, you know, I knew the guy was not going to be gone very long, you know, he's just probably going to go get something and come back, so I don't know why I draw this out. But anyway, he eventually came back, he walked in the aisle, and I didn't notice him because my back was to him. So he walked in, and he's like, hey, I got the stuff, I got the bread or whatever, and I turn around, and he's there, and he's staring daggers at me again. He's just like, oh, you're that guy from Dollar Tree. And I'm like, yeah, I'm the cashier. I was just talking to your girlfriend. Probably not the best way I could have phrased that. And he's like, yeah, you just don't forget it. I'm like, what? I'm like, oh, I'm just, you're talking to her. You're getting pretty chummy with her over at the store I saw there. I'm like, she's talking to you. I'm like, I can't really tell if he's being, I mean, he's obviously being snarky here. I mean, he's not being, like, pissed off, like, what the fuck you talking to my girlfriend for, boy? Because I think what happened was, he sees me as not a threat, because the way I look, you know, I'm like 5'5", he's like 6 foot. I'm just this pathetic, scrawny little white kid, and they've probably been dating for a while, so he doesn't see me as a legitimate threat. But at the same time, just the idea that I was kind of I was kind of talking to his girlfriend, and he could see that I was having a little bit more, like, I'm talking to her more in-depthly than maybe he would to her. I think that was just like lighting a fire under his ass just a little bit. So, you know, he goes on with that, and he kind of semi-jokes, but it's not really a joke. It's not like, just don't you forget it. He's like, he meant something by it. It was very snarky, very, very smart-ass. And at the same time, I looked at him, and I'm just like, oh, man, dude, I was just talking to her about, you know, like, anime and stuff. We had, like, a lot of stuff in common there. And he's just like, yeah, well, you know, it's time to go, so I think, you know, we're just going to head off there. And no, she's just, and of course she's like, what are you talking about? We still, like, I was going to go get something else. And he's like, yeah, well, so at the same time, you know, he doesn't think me as a threat, but he just wants to move me away. So, you know, she doesn't want to leave at the same time, but he's just kind of pressuring her. And I don't know why I said this. I really shouldn't have. Now looking back, I really should have just kind of, you know, what I should have done is I probably should have just said, see ya, bye, what's your last name? Like, what, like, can I look at your name on Facebook or something? I mean, that would probably still mean he was right there, but probably the better alternative to what actually happened, which was, I said to him, I said, hey, if she doesn't want to leave, you know, don't force her, or, you know, like, she doesn't want to go, dude. He looked at me, and he's just like, oh. He's like, oh, so, you know, you're giving me orders. This guy is freaking, like, I'm like, dude, what? Like, the reaction he gets is, like, very, very smug and very, like, he just wants to beat my face in all of a sudden, which, yeah. So, you know, he's just like, you know, why don't you just stay out of it, and you just leave. And, you know, I just looked at him, and I just told him, and I just said, dude, I'm talking with your girlfriend, okay? I'll talk to whoever I want to talk to. All right, you like, because, you know, I'm tired of that. You know, like freaking smart. Like the way he was talking to me just pissed me off, because he acted like I was such an insignificant little, like, oh, you know, whatever, piss off, you little ant. I could freaking crush you under my foot. So I was getting a little pissed off. I mean, he was showing it more than I was, but at that point, I'm just like, you know what? No, I'll talk to her if I want to. You know, because she doesn't have a problem with me. I don't have a problem with her, so I'm freaking talking to her. Well, that pissed him right off, apparently, even more so than what he already was. He looked at me a little bit, and the look he gave me now was just like he wants to, you know, so he's looking at me a little bit, and he just stands up. He just stands up, he walks forward for me a little bit, and when he walks forward, I back up. Because I don't know what the hell this guy's going to do. Honestly, I have no idea, because the expression in his eyes just completely changed from, you know, piss off, you little, you know, pathetic little boy, to like, oh, you're in for it now. So he's getting close to me, and I've had little, not, I wouldn't say like sparring matches, but I've fought with my friends before just for the hell of it, just to see, because, you know, whatever. So I've known from experience that when people try to fight me, even in like a sparring sense, they use their size against me, because most people that I fight are taller than me. So they look at me and they're like, oh, I'll just use my size to my advantage. And this guy was trying to do that, and so I was keeping my steps equal between us. And what he was going to do, I could tell what he was going to do. He was going to reach out, grab me like this, and just, I don't know what he was going to do after that, if he was just going to like shove me aside or push me back or whatever, but I could tell just the way he was. People have done this before. I could tell like that he was just going to try to use his size to an advantage, grab me, and just like freaking manhandle me from the side. And that's what he tried to do. Yeah, this was in the middle of a one. Now, like, granted, there was like no one else in the aisle. This isn't just like, you know, he's like, oh, someone please break up this horrific accident, or he made such a big scene. There was no one else in the aisle. This is like 10 o'clock at night. So he reaches out, he tries to grab me, he does it quick, but I knew, like I said, I kind of knew what was going to happen, so right when he jumps and leaps at me, I do like a quick back jump, like I back up, just like a pivot, like a little bit, and he tries it, and that knocked him off his balance, that like fucked up his balance, so he kind of he just kind of and he just like one knee. And I don't know why I did the following. I really should not have done this. I was in the clear. I was in the clear. I could have just stopped right there. I could have just I could have just stopped and just been like, dude, what the hell? And, you know, his girlfriend would have probably just grabbed him. He's like, dude, what are you doing? And they would have probably, and I would have probably just left. I would have probably just been like, you know what, whatever, it's not worth it, leave. So, instead, whenever he was knocked off his balance and he lands on his knee, and I'm like, perfect wide open shot, I must have been pissed off, just generally mad at this day about this guy, but I just knocked him right here, in between the bridge, between the forehead and the nose, just like clocked him. I didn't like, halfway through throwing the punch, I kind of realized this was a bad idea, so it was kind of like, and then I slowed down at the last minute and I knocked him right here, but, you know, you get knocked in this point, you know, hitting the bridge of the nose and the forehead at the same time, it's going to kind of rattle you. So, honestly, this guy's like big hulking brutes, so even if I probably swung with full strength, he probably would have not gotten hurt very much. But nonetheless, suffice it to say that agitated him sufficely, so I hit him, he stumbles a little bit, but he recovers because honestly, like I said, my stopped halfway. Like I said, even if I did full power, I'm like, that's not gonna do shit. So he gets like in like enraged bull, and he just like, and I'm like, oh shit, dude, sorry, and that's no. The voice of reason has long since left his conscious being, so he just like charges, grabs me, pushes me back. I don't know why he didn't. I don't know if he was trying to punch me or if he just wanted to grab me and just throw me as hard as he freaking could, but he did. He grabbed me and he tossed me, and I smacked my head off the side of the freaking aisle, or the shelf, the metal shelf there. I smacked my head off of it, got a freaking gash up here. I start bleeding. I stand up, and my arm's still not exactly what it was, because I landed funny. The shelf kind of broke my fall, but it's a metal shelf. I split my forehead, and I freaking like messed up my shoulder. My shoulder's easy to mess up to begin with. So I land on the freaking ground, and you know, I think I don't know if he was gonna come over and like just like start wailing on me, but his girlfriend's just like, you know, like, what do you stop doing? Oh my god! So, you know, that grabs him, and she's like looking at him like in front of him, like, please stop, we're gonna get freaking arrested if you keep doing this. So he looks down at her, and I guess like some semblance of reason just kind of returns to him. He just looks down at her, and he just looks over at me, and he just points at me, and he's just like, you stay the fuck away from us from now on, and he just leaves. He's like it just leaves. So, you know, I get up, you know, I was lying on the ground the entire time. I was freaking rattled because he just freaking chucked me into a metal shelf. So I knew I was bleeding too. I mean, it wasn't, I don't want you to think it was like I needed stitches or anything, but I cut my head. It was a pretty good cut, and I was bleeding. So I could tell I was bleeding, and my shoulder was just messed up. So I just lied there, and he left with his girlfriend, and I stood up, and I'm like, oh, crap, I'm freaking bleeding. I'm like, damn it. So I just walk out, and I'm cradling my arms, all like my shoulders like sore. I do have a bruise back here actually, and you know, I'm holding my forehead as I leave because I don't want anyone to like say anything like, you know, like, where'd you get your cut? I'm like, you look whatever. So I go back to my car, and I have like, you know, I got like paper towels and shit in there, and I like wipe my head clean, and I drive home. And I was going to make a video about it last night. I was really going to, but at the same time, it's just like, you know, I got home, my mom was asleep. I didn't feel like ranting and raving. And, you know, and I had to lie how I got this to her. I had to be like, yeah, I got, you know, I fell at work. I fell into a shelf at work, which was kind of not, you know, kind of the same thing, right? So, yeah, that's a story. What happened to me last night. Pretty weird shit. I made that entire story up, by the way. Like, the whole thing. Good night, everybody!